After a quick dinner, MSU doctoral candidate Kate Dibieski heads to the observatories. As usual, the girl turns on her favorite music on her headphones and launches her giant telescopes. Suddenly, the first images appear on the screen and one of them greatly surprises Kate. In the picture, the girl sees a large comet that was not previously in sight. The girl's colleagues and Professor Mindy gather at the observatory, congratulating Kate on her first big discovery. The company is having fun, marveling at the beauty of the celestial body and the trajectory of the flight. Dr. Mindy calculates the speed of the comet on the blackboard, deciding to teach it to the students, but suddenly the professor freezes and begins breathing heavily. He abruptly sends the students home, asking only Kate to stay. The professor calls Dr. Calder and asks to see the email. Something confused the professor about the pictures and he wants to double-check his hunches. Calder brings in a NASA specialist, and stammering with excitement, Kate reports that by all calculations, the asteroid is more than 5 kilometers in diameter. It will collide with the Earth in 6 months and 14 days, and it threatens the loss of all life. Dr. Oglethorpe feels that everything must be reported to Washington, and to do this he needs someone who saw the comet first and someone who will be responsible in case of a mistake. Dr. Mindy tries to be supportive of the student, but he himself is also very nervous. Mindy and Dibieski get their own plane, and even there the professor can't find a seat. Once at the White House, Randall and Kate meet Teddy Oglethorpe and General Timms, who is overseeing the case. President Jane Orlean was also going to attend the meeting, but for now she is delayed and the company is offered some rest from the road. Kate tries to keep her cool, but when she realizes she has to speak to the president, the girl vomits right into the trash can. President Orlean takes her time in the meeting, forgetting that scientists are waiting for her. To take care of the guests, General Timpson brings them peanuts and water, asking them to pay for the treats. Night falls. The general bids farewell, leaving the trio to wait further. Short of time, Kate goes in search of water and discovers that it is absolutely free, and the old warrior just tricked them. Jason Orlean, the president's son, informs the guests that the meeting is postponed because he is not feeling well. The company suspects that the government doesn't know how serious the situation is, but at some point it becomes clear that no one simply cares about scientists. Philip Cage, Kate's buddy, calls her to support her friend, but all he does is talk about his article, and it makes the girl terribly angry. Knowing that in 6 months they will all die, Kate cannot listen to the ridiculous problems. Mindy feels about the same way. Talking to her family on the phone, the doctor tries to rejoice in her son's progress, but her nerves give out. Finally, the next day, President Orlean receives the scientists, but with all her appearance, both she and her son show indifference, not understanding why they are told about some comet at all. Oglethorpe intervenes, who confirms the scientist's words and suggests trying to dislodge the comet with nuclear drones, but Jane Orlean is more worried about the coming elections and advises everyone to keep quiet, promising to get more scientists if she doesn't forget. Oglethorpe advises Mindy to leak the pictures to the press, leaving things as they are won't avoid disaster. Peter Isherwell, a genius with developmental disabilities, presents his new model of smartphone, which can read the feelings and emotions of the owner. It is to him that Oglethorpe passes the pictures after the show, knowing that Peter will know what it's all about. Mindy and Kate meet with the film crew, and they, after double-checking the information, are going to run the news, but before they do, they want to provide scientists with lawyers, realizing that the White House will not leave their chatter. Randall tries to figure out what he is doing that is illegal and why he needs a lawyer, but instead of explaining himself, the producer asks him to send the PhD to media training before appearing on a talk show. Kate tells Philip the whole truth, nearly sowing panic in the city. Meanwhile, the comet floats calmly and beautifully through the vast cosmos, approaching Earth. Interview day arrives, and Mindy is shaking with terror as usual, but by the time the show starts, the professor is packed and ready to speak. Kate realizes that they won't get a response here either. The comet story is put at the very end, after the story about the pop diva breaking up with her boyfriend. Finally, the turn comes to the scientists, but even now the host asks silly questions, preventing the astronomers from talking about the planet's terrible future. Oglethorpe supports his colleagues by sitting at the screen and hoping that they will still be heard. Out of fear and excitement, Kate's speech is very quiet and indecisive, so no one pays attention to the dire forecast. Unable to tolerate the spiteful attitude, Kate makes a scene and runs out of the audience, which becomes the highlight of the show instead of a real scoop. Mindy tries to remedy the situation, but the hosts interrupt his story with silly jokes and the show ends without revealing the comet. Kate's breakdown instantly goes viral online, becoming a meme, but there's nothing scientists can do about it. Even the producers are no longer interested in the news about the asteroid, deciding that astronomers are a little off their game. Even Philip breaks up with the girl, thinking she's crazy, and Kate no longer tries to play pretty and makes a riot in the studio. All the newscasts talk about is the upcoming election and Jane Orland's promiscuous behavior. Even Randall's wife stops taking his tales of the coming end of the world seriously, and instead of delivering her husband's message online, she chooses to go for a walk in the fresh air. But Mindy also has to tear herself away from the computer. Coming down to her wife's voice, Randall sees a mob of FBI agents on her doorstep. Kate is arrested right on the run, Oglethorpe on his way out of the office. All three are charged with spreading state secrets, but instead of prison, they are brought to the White House. Orlean apologizes to the scientists and declares that she is ready to call an army and try to stop the comet. The president has to admit that it's all about not losing the election because of the vulgar scandal, but the scientists don't care why she agreed, as long as they can save the world. The next day, Jane Orland speaks to the people of America, stating that the data just came to her. Only 5 months remain before the giant falls, but the president promises Americans that they will do everything they can to save them from destruction. The only thing that worries the scientists is the method Orlean intends to use to shoot down the asteroid. The president is going to send a decommissioned shuttlecraft into space to be operated by an American hero. Orlean has chosen Colonel Benedict Drast for the role of this hero. The president is leading in all the ratings and winning the debate. The social networks talk only about the comet, and Mindy becomes the star of all sorts of shows and newscasts. Randall also returns to the studio talk show that started it all, speaking with much more confidence. It's no wonder, as the blonde host Bree Evans, with her hand under the table, is cheering the professor on. The once humble Mindy spends a lot of time in Bree's bed, telling her about herself, while Kate once again becomes the target of ridicule on the talk show. Finally, launch day arrives and the entire presidential apparatus gathers at the screens. Scientists also take their seats, and Peter Isherwell also joins the group of important people. Millions of people around the world gather in front of their TVs, waiting for the results. Rockets take to the sky, and Drast announces that the boosters are about to drop. But at that moment, Peter asks the president for a moment so he can talk to her. No one understands what's going on, but Orlean returns to the office and cancels the operation. The onlookers watch in horror as the ships return to land, and everyone thinks nothing good will happen again. The trio of scientists are brought to the White House and locked in an office while major issues are decided. Finally, Jason comes in for Mindy and declares that he has now been appointed chief science advisor. But the other scientists, Kate and Oglethorpe, do not get clearance, so they have to sit on lockdown. The president speaks to the audience and tells them about the plan that the genius Isherwell planted for her. After calculating the approximate composition of precious metals and minerals in the comet, the guy decided it wasn't worth kicking her off Earth. According to the smartphone creator, it is possible to crush the meteorite into small pieces and make billions for the entire Earth, saving lives. Mindy tells her friends all about it, but Kate seems to think that greed has clouded the heads of the overlords and they are taking unnecessary risks. The girl expresses her feelings too loudly and is heard by the other diner customers, to whom she doesn't even want to justify herself. Climbing onto the table, Kate talks about the government's plans, causing a wave of unrest. The graduate student is taken away with a bag over her head. She is charged again, but the girl promises to keep quiet and is set free. To get her thoughts in order, Kate goes to her parents' house, but the old folks won't even let her on the doorstep, saying that the comet resources are jobs, and the activist wants to ruin everything. After another appointment, Randall arrives at the room with Bree, but there the couple is in for a surprise. June, the scientist's wife, has decided to visit him and see how the work is going. She gets in a scandal, reminding her husband to take pills and leaves, slamming the door. Mindy chooses to stay with the spectacular blonde. Kate gets a job at the supermarket as a cashier, and looking wistfully at Philip's face as he interviews her, she indifferently snaps the goods. A group of guys recognize the salesgirl as a star and show their loyalty. One of the guys has a portrait of Dibiasky on his board. It works. Kate lets her buddy steal some merchandise and pretends not to see it. Peter invites Mindy and the president to his garage, where a huge robot is already ready to blow up the comet. Randall tries to find out if the businessman has considered all the risks, but Isherwell is offended by such questions, and to jab the scientist back, he tells him that the algorithms promise him to go to another world all alone. In the evening, Kate goes to hang out with the guys she happened to meet at the store. Thinking that Earth has no chance of surviving, the girl gets off, letting herself go to excess. Randall is invited to another episode of the talk show, but this time the scientist is not as friendly as usual. He is loudly and emotionally trying to shout to people, assuring them that the plan to mine the jewels is a failure and most likely the whole world is doomed. For this kind of ranting, Mindy ends up in the car with a bag over her head, and Bree hints to her buddy that their affair is over. Lying on the mattress with her new boyfriend, Kate speculates about the comet and reminisces again about the general who charged them for the free water. But the young man thinks this is all nonsense. He believes in God, and he thinks that somehow this whole story must end well. The couple is about to change the subject and get into things, but lying on her back, Kate notices her, the comet everyone has been talking about in recent months. Mindy notices the space guest too. A scientist stops his car in the middle of the road to get a closer look at the falling giant, and a crowd of onlookers gathers nearby. Despite all the horror of what's happening, the astronomers are happy to see such a miracle with their own eyes, and Kate's buddy gets on his knees and prays that the comet won't take their lives. Social media is exploding, millions of videos from around the world with the hashtag #LookUp, in which people share their impressions of what they saw. Mindy appears on a children's show, and even there he warns everyone of his imminent demise. In contrast, the president of the country launches a Don't Look Up flash mob, assuring his citizens that scientists are trying to intimidate them. The country is divided into two camps, the one believing in the best, and the other trying to come to terms with the end of mankind. There is, of course, a third group, those who try to raise their ratings by speculating on this topic, such as one of the famous actors who produced branded badges with arrows pointing up and down. Randall and Kate do a lot of public speaking, assuring everyone that it is impossible to bring such a comet down to Earth without consequences. But the doctor believes that it is not too late to change the trajectory of the flight and save the planet. Even a famous singer comes out in support of the scientists. Orlin invites his son to his election debates, but the boy makes such a speech that the chances of winning fall heavily. Jason calls the majority the underclass, which the government needs. That's how the two-side speeches differ. At Orlin's debate, the audience has to listen to nasty things, while at the scientist's speech, people in the audience watch the superstar and her boyfriend perform beautifully. Oglethorpe receives a phone call that makes him change his face. The professor is told that Orlin has stripped Russia, India, and China of their mineral rights, and they have tried to launch their mission to destroy a dangerous meteorite. But as it turns out, a few hours ago, there was an explosion at Baikonur, which means that the mission has failed. All that's left for humanity now is to hope that Isherwell's idea works. Orlin holds another rally, urging people not to look up and assuring them that everything is under control, but the crowd notices the comet getting even closer to Earth and riots break out in the square. Randall drives the student and her boyfriend away from the city. A sad song in the car leads the boyfriend to romantic thoughts, and he proposes to Kate to get engaged, while the entire administration gathers at the launch point to watch the robot launch with Peter, Mindy, and her young friends walk around the supermarket picking out tasty canned goods. After Jason's silly speech, the countdown begins. The moment the robot roars into the sky, Randall and company come home to his wife, wanting to face the end of the world with her if it's meant to be. June forgives her wayward husband, but not to be outdone, she confesses that she cheated on him back in the dating period. Oglethorpe joins the astronomer's family, and the large company cooks dinner, trying not to think about the future. Peter's drones go into space and dock with the comet in the meantime, but several of them fly away before they have time to work. Early on, but still the drones begin to explode, and now we can only hope that for good reason. The cameras on the drones fail, and the observation post can't see if the comet has managed to finish the job. Orlin receives a phone call from the president of China, who tells him that the plan has failed. The giant continues to move toward Earth. Peter and Orlin run away, and the station staff realizes that they should go too, in time to say goodbye to their families. Only Jason, who is afraid to make decisions without his mother, remains in the room. The president calls Mindy and offers seats on a spaceship that will look for a place to live on other planets. The scientist refuses, and after his words, Jane is reminded of her son. The men humbly watch the fiery clump and thank each other for the pleasantries. Even Kate finds something to say while in a stranger's family. The girl thanks her colleagues for trying to make things right. Rich, Kate's buddy, says a prayer that touches even unbelieving scientists. Some pour in hot drinks and some even try to shoot back, but despite this, the comet is very close to Earth and there are only minutes before it explodes. The collision happens. Mindy, his family, and guests feel the ground begin to shake beneath their feet. Catastrophes begin all over the world. Forests catch fire from fiery debris, seas part, cities disappear from the face of the earth. A beautiful dinner of a large company is interrupted by an explosive wave. But there are those who are lucky. Peter Isherwell's shuttle finds a new planet and lands dozens of lucky people destined to create a new life on it. Most of all, such guests are happy, colorful birds with an appetite for eating Jane Orlin.